Hi, my name is Kristen and this is Kristen Craves Books. So today we're going to talk about December releases, the last most anticipated releases video of the year. I'm going to have a lot of these actually in December, talking about 2024 releases broken down into different categories, but we're wrapping up 2023 releases and I can't believe it. Obviously it's December, so we don't have a ton of new releases. The biggest release day in December is December 5th because that gives you a chance to buy these books as Christmas presents. Actually, one of my most anticipated books of the entire year comes out in December and I'm really excited about it. So we still have some books coming out to get excited for. And actually, talking with a few friends, I've decided to add something new to these videos. So whenever I can find them, I'm going to talk to you about the pre-order campaigns that are available for these books. Obviously, not every book has them, and I will miss some, but if I do miss any, please let me know about them down below, because when I make these videos, I encourage you to pre-order the books that are calling to you because it really helps to support the author. And there's often these pre-order campaigns where you can submit your receipt and receive little goodies like art prints. I've seen a lot of authors do page overlays these days, which are amazing. Signed book plates are common. You'll get bonus chapters, things like that. And I'm going to let you know if they're US only, because a lot of them unfortunately end up being US only, which is a bummer for those of us who do not live in the United States, but a lot of them are international as well. So I will let you know when that is the case, and I will leave links for everything that you need down below. I just thought that would be a little fun thing to include when I can. So starting with December 5th, the first book we have is A River of Golden Bones. This is by A.K. Mulford. And the tagline for this says, a sleeping curse, a fallen court, a secret twin. I love a good secret twin. This seems to be more of a romantasy. Yeah, it's full of adventure, love, gender exploration, and self-discovery. And it follows Kala's journey through treacherous wolf kingdoms, monster-filled realms, and the depth of their own heart in this thrilling romantic fantasy. After watching The Lost City with Sandra Bullock and Channing Tatum, it made me realize how fun adventure romances are. And I'm hoping we get more and more of them in books and in fiction, and this one looks perfect. It's called The Raiders of the Lost Heart, which obviously is a pun, and this is by Joe Segura. And this is a rival archaeologist must team up on a secret Aztec expedition, or it could leave their careers and hearts in ruins. And it's enemies to lovers between these two archaeologists. I know that our heroine is on the search for the remains of a long lost relative, and that it's following these two as they are obviously looking for these remains and digging up these relics, while also being faced with artifact smugglers, and there's thieves around them and stuff. So this could be really ridiculous in a bad way or in a good way, so we'll just have to see, but I just hope it's fun. Then we have one that I don't think I realized was coming out, and this is Paladin's Faith by T. Kingfisher. This is the fourth book in the Saint of Steel series, which I'm a huge T. Kingfisher stan, like one of her biggest fans, and I haven't read that series, so I feel like a fake fan at this point. And I had no idea that the fourth book was coming out so soon, and in talking to some friends who have read this series and loved it, I don't think they realized we were getting it already. So in case you missed that announcement, it is coming out on December 5th. And another announcement is that that entire series plus Sword Heart, which I know people adore as well and I still have to get to, has been picked up at Orbit. And the new paperbacks are going to come out in 2025. So if you love these original paperbacks, you might want to try and track them down now before they go out of print. I think they're already kind of hard to find. I've only been able to find the first one because you just never know what the new covers are going to look like, and I do like these covers. So we will see, but I do love Orbit and I'm curious to see what they do with the covers. But I'm not waiting until 2025 to read this series. I've waited long enough. If you've been around these parts for a while, you know I love a good witchy contemporary romance, and I've said this in the past that I love that we're getting these kind of contemporary rom-coms that feature different supernatural characters that are not just witches. So like we had My Roommate is a Vampire, which obviously had a vampire, and this one is The Fake Mate, which has wolf shifters, and this is by Lena Ferguson. And I do want to mention this is our first pre-order campaign that has come up, and you have until December 1st to sign up for this. And this one is unfortunately US only, but for all my US viewers out there, this is an opportunity for you to check that out. And you do get a signed bookplate and some art prints, so I'll leave a link to that down below. But something that I love about the premise of this is that both our hero and heroine are wolf shifters. I feel like a lot of the books that I read like this, only one of the characters is the supernatural creature, so a lot of the times it's a witch and a human, or a vampire and a human, and in this case they're both wolf shifters, and obviously they work in a hospital or are doctors of some kind. Two wolf shifters agree to be fake mates but unexpectedly find something real. And I know that they both have their own reasons for wanting this fake relationship. I think she is just getting a lot of pressure from her grandmother to find her fated mate, because obviously in the lore of wolf shifters, you have your fated mates. And for a lot of women, you know how that goes. You get some familiar pressure to find your person or whatever. And she just kind of wants to shut her grandma up. That seems to be the vibe for her. And then he is also older and hasn't found his mate yet. And there's some kind of outdated stigma about being an alpha who doesn't have their mate or something. So that is why he decides to pursue this fake relationship. And it says, but when the fake mate act turns into very real friends with benefits arrangement, lines start to blur and they quickly realize love is a whole different kind of animal. So I think this has potential to be just a good time. Something I discovered about my reading this year is that I love two types of horror: underwater and anything in a cold setting. And what really sold me on the cold setting thing was A Haunting in the Arctic by C.J. Cook. So when I saw this next book, I thought it would be perfect. It's called Where the Dead Wait by Ali Wilkes. This cover alone is super creepy to me, where it's a hole in the ice and a little hand creeping up. Something about that visual is really getting to me, and I do believe that this one is historical. It's more gothic horror, which again is a lot like A Haunting in the Arctic. I like a Victorian gothic horror set somewhere isolated and cold. So this follows William, who's a really well-known Arctic explorer, but something goes awry on one of his expeditions and he ends up losing all of his crew members. And then 13 years later, another man goes missing in the same area, and he thinks that this is a way to kind of redeem himself by finding this lost explorer. And I think things go from there, and he figures out there's a lot darker things happening than he initially believed. Following a trail of cryptic messages, gaunt bodies, and old bones, their search becomes more and more unnerving as it becomes clear that the restless dead are never far behind. Something is coming through. So that sounds creepy. Maybe not the right book for December for me personally, because I want to read some cheery stuff, but it does look like a good January book for me. Denise Williams is an author who I want to read from. I put her books in all of these lists anytime she has a new one. I just don't know why I've never picked them up. I do think I'm gonna love her stuff. And from people who have read her past books and do love her, I've seen earlier reviewers say that this is actually their favorite. And this is called Technically Yours. 7 years ago, he fell in love with a stranger he couldn't have. Today, she's back in his life, and the sparks between them threaten to set her career on fire. This follows Pearl, who ends up on the board for this coding program where they help teach high schoolers how to code and encourage them to pursue that career. And there's some scandal that happened within this organization that she's trying to help repair. And she had this incident with another member of the board 7 years ago. I think they were trapped in an elevator or something, and there were sparks there. And then they might have dated for a little bit. There was heartbreak and all that stuff. And now 5 years later, they are forced together again. And she doesn't want to come out with a relationship with him because she thinks that will ruin her own reputation and her career and how we would look to date somebody who is on the board. But I've just heard great things about Denise Williams in general, and this looks like it'll be a quick read. And then we are getting a sequel to A Strange and Stubborn Endurance by Foz Meadows. This one is called All the Hidden Paths. It's another sequel I just wanted to mention in case you loved that first book and you weren't aware that we are getting the sequel already. I have had that first book on my TBR since before it was released, but I've been nervous about it because I was warned there's a pretty graphic scene that happens in the first couple of chapters that maybe I will just skim, because I do think that this sounds really interesting, and apparently there's really great political stuff going on, great world building, and the characters are really amazing, and there's a romance and everything. I will probably just have to skim that first part, but I do appreciate people warning me about that, and I do want to get to it. So if you like that first book, there is a sequel coming on December 5th. And then of course we are getting one of my witchy rom-coms. Of course we are. And this one is called This Spells Love by Kate Robb, and the tagline says, "What if one little wish changed everything?" This one makes me a little bit nervous because I don't like alternate reality stories historically, but maybe because this one is more of a contemporary romance than something too serious, I might be more inclined to appreciate it. It follows a woman who is broken up with, and her friends get together to kind of do something silly to help her forget about her ex, and they do this spell to make her forget that he ever existed or that they were ever together. And she ends up forgetting pretty much everything, and her life takes a completely different course, and she forgets one of her best friends who is into her, and they have like this friends to lovers kind of romance, but she doesn't remember him, so he has to come back into her life in some way. So there's potential there. The alternate reality stuff does make me a little nervous, and I don't know how witchy it is other than there just being that spell, but we will see. I know that I really love sci-fi. I've just been neglecting it lately, and this book reminds me why I like sci-fi so much, because the themes that are explored in this book sound really interesting to me. This is Yours for the Taking by Gabrielle Korn, and this is like a sci-fi story that takes place in 2050. It says soon it won't be safe outside at all. The only people guaranteed survival are the ones whose applications are accepted to the Inside Project, a series of weather-safe city-sized structures around the world. So we're following different women within this society. So we're following Ava and her girlfriend who live in Brooklyn and are trying to get into one of these Inside projects. We're also following a billionaire who's a women's rights activist who's involved with these projects, and some other people within this community as well. So I think that could be really compelling. And it says, at once a mesmerizing story of queer love, betrayal, and chosen family, and an unflinching indictment of cis corporate feminism. Yours from the Taking holds a mirror to your own world in all its beauty and horror. Sounds fantastic. And then the one I'm most excited about is This Cursed Light by Emily Thede. I love This Vicious Grace. This is no secret. I talk about it all the time. One of my best books of last year. I've been highly anticipating the sequel. I will be rereading the first book. And I want you to know that if you did get your hands on a pre-order, including special editions, even the Fairy Elite one, there is a pre-order campaign that is international. So you can get a signed bookplate, bonus chapters, and some art prints. And I know that the first 500 people within the US do get a page overlay. I'm not sure if there are any available yet, but worth trying. And I will leave the link to those down below. So I won't talk about the sequel too much, but the first book has a lot of great tropes. It has Her Touch Could Kill, the Barneycard trope, great found family and isolated island setting that is inspired by Italy. And I just think the politics were really great, but the romance was top tier, as was the found family aspects. I just think it's fantastic. You'll hear me talk about it in December as I reread the first book and the sequel as well. Moving on to December 12th. So December 5th was the big day. Now we don't have very many left. But this first one looks adorable. It's called Game On by Cerisia Glass. And this is when an unexpected player 2 enters her life. A gamer must decide if their relationship is worth leveling up in. You know, I love punny little descriptions of romances. And this is kind of enemies to lovers, because our heroine in this one is an influencer. She is a gamer, and she likes to call out games for not being very inclusive, and she does this for a really popular game, and it blows up, and other women get behind her and are calling out this game developer, and the CEO of this company finds her going viral and hires her to help make the game more inclusive, especially in creating the characters and things like that. So they start off kind of enemies and antagonistic, but they grow to fall in love, obviously. I think it's interesting that it's going to revolve around gaming and gaming culture and open up some discussions about women in those spaces, because I've seen some pretty horrific things online about how women who game are treated. So I like that this book is exploring some of those topics as well as being a romance. Now moving on to December 19th, but I do think that this is out a little earlier in December. In the UK, this is Heartstopper Volume 5. Do I need to explain this to anybody? This is the cutest graphic novel. Is this the final graphic novel in this series? I think that it might be. I think that is what I heard, which is just very sad. I have only read the first 3. I really do need to continue on, but I love the Netflix adaptation of these graphic novels. And this is such a sweet cover. I just love Nick and Charlie, and I know so many people are going to be hyped for that one. And then we have Knives, Seasoning, and A Dash of Love by Katrina Kwan. This follows Eden, who kind of lied on her resume in order to get a job at this really prestigious restaurant. And the chef at this restaurant is Alexander, who's kind of your stereotypical, overbearing, grumpy, elusive chef. And Eden and him don't really get along, but from the synopsis, it seems that she knew about him before he changed his name. So I'm curious to see about their past and why he doesn't seem to recognize her, or how she knew of him in the first place. But they obviously fall in love within the confines of this kitchen, which is always a trope and a setup that I love. And then on December 23rd, right before Christmas, and this is a fantasy romance, so it might be a fun one to pick up at that time, we have A Serenade to the Elf Queen, and this is by Nero J. Hale. And it says that the Elven Queen grew up with tales of the cruel Fae King all her life. When the wicked Fae murdered her beloved sister, she swore fire and death would come for him. It's a fantasy romance trilogy featuring elements of enemies to lovers, arranged marriage, and a retelling of Beauty and the Beast. I'm a little bit nervous of the Beauty and the Beast part, because that is not my favorite story to be retold, but I can like it if it's done and handled well. And I know that she has to go to this creature who is chained like underneath the well to get help and revenge. So I'm assuming that is obviously the Beast character. So the fact that it's kind of twisted on its head, maybe I will like it. And then last but not least, on December 26th, I have a feeling that people are going to be really excited about this one, and that it will be on a lot of best books of the year list. At least the first book of the series will, because that was Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, and the sequel to that, Ruthless Vows, comes out on December 26th, so right before New Year's. That sounds like the perfect way to end the year if you love that first book, which I still need to read. All I know is that the first book is historical fantasy set around the war, and these two write letters to each other. I know very little about it other than it's really beloved, and I love that we got the second book in the same year as the first, but I hope it wasn't rushed and that it's just as good. But I'm excited to see how everybody feels about it, because I love to get wrapped up in hype even if I'm not reading the books, if you know what I mean. So those are all the books that I know about or I'm excited about that come out in December. Let me know if I missed any. Let me know which ones are on your TBR, or if you managed to have ARCs or something of these and have read them, I'd love to know your thoughts on them. So that wraps up 2023 releases. Moving on to 2024, I can't believe it. Thank you for your support all year long. I can't wait to next year. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.